Hi there and welcome to my channel. Today's project is for the Vicki Boutin design team, and this week I am going to create a rainbow layout. Lately I think the color that we all are looking for are rainbows, so I'm going to use that as an inspiration for my page. And I found actually two pictures of my cousins while they were shopping for the new glasses. They took some snapshots and they sent them to me, and I had them on my stash. So I'm gonna bring them out to document them. So my idea or the inspiration for this page is, I can't remember what the name of the paper is, but it's the one that has all those triangles of a different color papers, kind of create a sunburst. I'm gonna use it as inspiration for my background. And the first thing that I did is I marked where the picture, an approximation of where it's gonna sit. So I marked the corners or where everything is gonna sit. And this is the paper that I'm using as inspiration. I thought about cutting the paper, but then I have a different idea in mind. But I'm gonna recreate kind of an idea of the paper using art crayons. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of mask the area. So I'm gonna lay one piece of that. This is white painter's tape, and I had this an old one that my husband brought from work, and it's losing its stickiness. So you're gonna see that some of the watercolor is actually gonna seep underneath the tape, and I'm okay with that. It doesn't affect the end result. So first thing I did is I masked the horizontal line where the picture is gonna sit, and then I'm gonna use the tape to create the triangle shapes. And I'm gonna start with the light blue color. So I'm just using the light blue art crayon. I scribbled it on a piece of acrylic, and I diluted it with some water. And then I'm gonna bring a piece of acetate. You can use a packaging, you can use the cover of the foundation paper, and all I'm gonna do is kind of collect a little bit of the pigment with the, in this case, the acetate, and then transfer it onto the page. And I'm using what Vicki calls the kissing technique, or you can call it the packaging technique. And all I'm doing is kind of wiggling, or like the plastic in this case, so that the paint gets deposited. And by doing that kind of the swishing effect with the plastic, just creates a very organic application of the watercolor. Now my idea is I want these starbursts or bursts or triangles, whichever way you want to call them, to look like an explosion of color. That means that I'm going to add splatters towards the top of the application. And if you know my work, then you know that I love splatters. So then I'm gonna continue kind of creating my rainbow, and I'm gonna go onto a teal color. So I'm using a little bit of the teal art crayon, mixing it with a little bit of the light blue. Again, scribble it on my piece of acrylic, dilute it, and apply it onto my page. Here's where you can see already how the watercolor is kind of seeping through. And then I realized that I have to kind of let the paint dry a bit before I keep going, just because there's a little bit of what do you call it? Oh my god, the paper's warping a bit because I'm adding water. So I'm gonna let it dry, and I'm gonna continue into another section. So I'm gonna skip the next section, and which will be green, and I'm gonna go into the yellow. For this I am mixing a little bit of the ochre yellow tone that comes in the neutral set with the yellow from the warm set, and a little bit of the peach from the warm set, and that's gonna give me that warm tone that comes in the collection. Again, I'm gonna scribble it onto the acrylic, dilute it, and apply it onto the page, making sure that I have splatters at the top. And then I'm gonna continue working. I'm gonna go back to the green, and for the green I'm gonna use a little bit of the light green color. I'm gonna mix it with a bit of the, I think it's with the blue that I mixed, but it came to this really nice green. And then I'm gonna continue working for the, I did not want to make red, because again, as like Vicki has said, I have the same mentality. It looks like blood splatters. So instead you're gonna see that I'm gonna mix kind of a different, I'm gonna say kind of a corally tone. But again, I'm gonna skip that color just to help the paint dry in between, and that I'm just skipping kind of a triangle and working on the next one. So this is the fuchsia one, and then once I have that, I'm gonna go back and work on the triangles that I have, that empty space. So I think I'll go back and start with the green, Yeah, again, I'm gonna mix some of the colors. I'm gonna mix the light green art crayon because I want something that is very different, although there's a lot of difference between the teal and the yellow. So I thought that a leaf green would be nice. So I mixed the light green with a little bit of that green that comes in the neutral set, and it just gives me kind of like really leafy tone to it. I added a little bit of the teal just to make sure that I combine the previous color, and again, splatters at the top. And you're gonna see here, once I get that done, I'm gonna go on to the red kind of orangey tone, and I use quite a few crayons here. I use a little bit of the peach, I use a little bit of that reddish tone, a little bit of orange, and that just give me, it looks more like a kind of an orangey coral reddish, but it's not blood. And you can see the difference between the yellow, that tone, and the fuchsia. So that, and it's really light application. It's not a heavy application. You can make it heavy if you want to. That's completely up to you. I wanted something really light because I'm gonna add more mixed media on top of this. So for the next application, I just want very little. I'm gonna add a little bit of the violet on the purple to the right of the fuchsia, and then I'm gonna add navy to the left of the blue. So for the purple was super easy. I just scribbled the violet and the purple art crayons together, dilute them and add them. But to create the navy, I had a hard time creating the navy. You're gonna see that I used that dark kind of dark blue tone that comes in the neutral set. I also add to that the dark blue tone that comes in the cool set, and it's still not giving me a navy. So I went and added a little bit of black, and the black is just gonna tone it down and give me that navy, that kind of indigo that I'm looking for. Again, splatters at the end. Peel off the tape. You're gonna see how much is seeped, and because it's quite a bit there, and I know that part is gonna show, I'm actually gonna add a little bit of the light blue on top just to line it up, and then I'm gonna peel everything and set it aside to dry. Didn't take that long to dry, but I make sure that it dry completely before I go on to the next step. Now if you see the paper that I'm using as inspiration, then you see that each one of the paper, I'm gonna call them paper triangles, or the triangles of color, has little details inside. So I'm gonna do the same thing for mine, but I'm gonna use stamping, I'm gonna use glazes, I'm gonna use texture paint, I'm gonna use my stencil brushes. I'm just gonna create really a sampler of mixed media on my background. So I'm starting with the stamp set from the Let's Wonder collection. There is a little sentiment that says happy moments, and I'm using the light green ink pad to stamp all along the triangle. And one thing I realized today, I've been with Vicki for what is going to be 2 years. My ink pads were really, they're still juicy, but they have a really weird smell, and I think it's just because they're getting old. Thankfully I had a different set, so I had to throw them after I finished this. So just FYI, it was really sticky, it was weird consistency, so I think it was just like past the due date, so I had to throw them and get a new pad. Just so if it happens the same, it's just the ink gets old even though you use it and stuff like that. So once I get the green in the way, I'm gonna come in with some of the prism glaze, just because it has that teal look of it, and I'm gonna use my stencil brush in one of the new stencils, and I'm gonna make sure, like what I forgot to mention is that I mask each one of the triangles, because I want to make sure that when I add the second layer of mixed media, it's only to that area. So I make sure that I add some wash painter's tape, and I'm just using my stencil brush to go to pick up some of the prism glaze and go on a circular motion on top of the stencil to create the impression. Now while that dries, I'm gonna jump onto the yellow, so there's space in between the little triangles that I'm working. I'm gonna use the wave stencil for this, but I'm gonna use some of the texture paint. So I'm gonna bring some of the yellow texture paint, and I'm gonna bring my stencil brush, and I'm gonna again pick up some of the texture paint and go on top of the stencil just to create the impression on a circular motion. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. But you're gonna see that even though you can see the pattern, it's kind of a little bit hazy, and it's because my paper is a little bit warped, so the stencil is not going straight. And it's such a fine stencil that you have to make sure the paper is really flat to get that really crisp impression. Now I'm gonna go back onto the light blue, and for that again I'm gonna use, this is the stamp set from the Wildflower and Honey stamp set, and I love the sentiment that says awesome. So I'm gonna use the light blue ink to stamp all the awesome in the light blue. And then to apply, I didn't know what to do with that reddish tone. I didn't want to emphasize the red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this stencil is from Wildflower and Honey, one of my favorites that Vicki has created. And I'm using the same art crayons that I use, some of the peach and some of the reddish tone, to scribble on my craft mat. I'm going to pick up the pigment with my stencil brush and go on a circular motion on top of the stencil to create the impression. Now for the fuchsia triangle, I'm using one of the circle stamps from Vicki's Field Notes collection, and I'm using the fuchsia ink pad to add the impression. And then when it came to the extremes, because I knew they were going to show more than a lot of the center, I'm actually gonna use the metallic ink pads, and the flower that comes in the Wildflower and Honey stamp to add some of the details to the edges of the page, in this case of the triangles at the edge of the page, the navy and the violet. And like I said, I'm adding there because kind of think of it as they're capping the picture. So you're actually going to see them a lot more than what you're going to see in the center. Love how this turned out. Really love the sampler of mixed media in the background. So I'm going to make sure that it dries completely. And while that happens, I'm just going to start working on some of the rest of the layout. So I'm bringing that tag is from the tag, the journaling kind of tag mini book set. And I really love that big tag. It has that gold look that I added to the ends of the background. So I'm gonna glue my pictures on that with a little bit of foam adhesive, and then I'm bringing this punch that I have. It's probably one of the few punches that I have. It's from Michaels, and it actually punches a butterfly. So I'm gonna use the same paper that I use as inspiration to punch a few butterflies, and then I'm gonna go through the entire Let's Wonder collection to pull out papers that actually have the tones that I'm looking for. So I went into the 6x8 paper pad because there was some purple there in the hollow paper. There's some purple, so I'm gonna cut out some of them. I went into the 6x8 paper pad because the B side of the flower paper in the 6x8 paper pad has this pinkish with purple tone, so I cut some of that. And I couldn't find a light blue that matched what I have, so I went into the 6x8 mixed media, the pre-made mixed media paper pad. And if you see one of the papers has a background that has light blue with teal, I'm gonna punch the butterfly from the light blue part of it. And once I have them all ready, I'm gonna go ahead and start assembling. So it took quite a bit of papers, like little pieces, because my punch is 1.5 inches wide. That's how big the butterfly is. So all I'm gonna do is I make sure that I punch 2 butterflies out of each of the colors, not the papers, each of the colors, and I punch 2 extras from the pink one, like that fuchsia one. And all I'm doing is I'm layering one on top of the other, and I'm just gonna fold the wings of the top one a little bit just to add some movement. And really I'm gonna go ahead and I'm adding a little bit of glue dots behind each of the butterflies, and I'm gonna glue them kind of a straight line at the bottom of the picture, kind of creating as the beginning of the rainbow. That's the way that I saw it. That's the beginning of the rainbow. And at the ends, just because it's so tight, I'm gonna make sure that the purple and the blue ones, or the navy one, is kind of a little bit higher than that kind of, it's not even a straight line, they just look like a straight line, but they're one on top of the other one. They just kind of peeking to the sides, kind of opening the straight line. And then I went into the ephemera pack and I found this ephemera piece that says New View, and like I said, this is my cousin's buying glasses, so I thought it was a perfect title for this layout, and I'm gonna put it right underneath the butterflies. Here's what I realized, that the layout is bottom heavy, which is okay because I have quite a bit of white space at the top. So I'm gonna take around 3/4 of an inch of the background from the top, and instead I'm gonna replace it with the paper that I use as the inspiration at the bottom. Now, the only thing you have to remember if you want to repeat this is that the paper that has the triangles, the starting point for the starburst is not at the middle, it's kind of on the side, and I'm okay with that because it's actually going to help me to create movement on my page. So literally I'm actually going to add glue to the top of the of that little stripe paper, and then I'm gonna glue it to the bottom of my page, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and trim it so that it completes my 12 inches. Now, because I make sure that I glued the paper with the kind of the triangles of papers a little bit higher than the edge of the white cardstock, that way I can kind of create a little bit of the illusion of movement, kind of an underlayer, so that it looks like the triangle or the watercolor paper, no sorry, that the rainbow paper is at a different level. So what I did is the wave paper, I think it's called Beach Vibes from the Let's Wonder collection. The B side has all these sunglasses, so I fussy cut one of them, and I'm gonna glue it right at kind of the center point of the paper and the bottom strip. It just gave me the great spot for it. So I added a few stickers from these are all from the sticker tablet, and I thought it created that perfect cluster in that little spot. After that, I'm actually gonna add a chipboard sticker and a few more pieces of ephemera from the Let's Wonder collection right at the top right corner of the layout. Like I said, I'm gonna try to create movement, especially since I added the little cluster with the glasses at the bottom. I'm gonna make sure that I bring emphasis to the title, to the top right corner of the layout, and then add a little bit more just to create a zigzag motion as your eye goes through the page. So another thing that I did is I'm gonna add a little bit of string to the tag, and I made sure that it was light blue just because the string is gonna fall in that area. I'm gonna add a little arrow that says "Fun This Way," again from the sticker tablet. And then I think the only thing that I add here is those little glitter buttons that come in the collection. You're gonna see that I'm gonna bring them right now, and I'm just gonna kind of spread them around. I'm gonna add the light blue at the bottom cluster because it kind of falls in the blue area. I'm gonna use a silver next to the picture. I'm gonna use the black with the red and pink right by the title, and a gold one at the top. And then I added the butterfly from the chipboard sticker from the Let's Wonder collection. I love how this turned out. This was so much fun. It took me I had of taping an hour and a half, but it was so much fun to put together just because I got to play with all these different mixed media. And then the paper is a happy combination of paper and watercolor and mixed media and rainbows and butterflies and everything nice. So I hope you try it. I hope you like it. As always, if you have any questions on how this came together, do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you soon. Take care, guys.